So we'll just go ahead and get started because it's going to be a heavy lift of a meeting, I think, by the time we're done. So I've got the agenda up here. Let me minimize this. So first thing, general welcome everybody to the February 2nd, 2022 meeting. It's the Tuesday I've seen on the internet, as they're calling it. We will open up to public comment if there's any public comment. Keep an eye out, raise your hands if you have anything public-wise. Not seeing anything. I don't see a lot of names I don't recognize, so. All right. Gary's not here today because he's in warmer climates in Cancun, so that's why you're not seeing him, and I'm the one running the meeting. He just texted to ask if it's going. Hold on.
Well, have him say hi to Ted Cruz if he sees him down there.
All right, so we'll jump into staff updates, and Linda, we'll go ahead and start with you.
I don't have much to report other than what you've got on the agenda about Washington State DOT having a call for projects for a safe route to school. Other than that, not much has happened since the last BPAC meeting.
All right.
Because I think we reported on the Walkability Movability Action Institute at the last meeting.
Yeah,
we did. Yeah. However, sorry to cut you off, Linda, but I don't think that we told them that we got selected, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
that was the exciting
but maybe not. Yes, we got selected along with 3 other counties in Washington State. I know Thurston and Grant counties are 2 of them. Clark County is the 3rd, and I'm not recalling which the 4th is. But we're looking forward to that. I think it'll be really help us with momentum moving forward with active transportation planning and healthy communities planning.
Very nice. Good job. All right, Yasmina, we'll go to you at public health.
Well, that was going to be my exciting news that we got selected. And for those, I think everyone was here, but our team, just wanted to reiterate, our team is Bill Bauman, Linda, Gary, Temple Lentz, which we're pretty excited about, Lauren Henriksen, and myself, so 6 of us. And Linda, I did not know who the other counties were, so it's pretty exciting that Thurston County. You said Grant?
Yes, I'm not recalling which the 4th one is.
Sounds good. And we'll be going in May, and hopefully it'll be in person, I'm hoping.
And then Yasmina, since not everyone was on yet, do you want to give them a quick update on what's happening with your work from home situation, or the health department's work from home situation?
Oh, sure. I should have. Well, so we're all working from home remotely. I just paused there just because I don't know if I'm the greatest person to represent public health, just because at the front side of it, and I can give a better detailed just notification for folks. So as far as public health, we got notification that we'll be working from home indefinitely. However, I think the biggest concern is usually the vital records. So folks that are the front facing, and like I said, I wasn't prepared for this. Notifications? Yeah, no, it's okay. But I can definitely send a follow-up email and how that transition will look like for the public, because each department runs differently. But otherwise, yeah, we'll be just working from home indefinitely. Be kind of exciting.
Sorry to put you on the spot there, but I figured it was.
Oh, it's okay. I just want to make sure that I have the accurate information to give to the public. But yeah.
Thank you. And then, Lori, will you be giving WashDOT's update?
Actually, Kelly Smith, our multimodal.
Oh, there she is. Okay, sorry, I missed you. All right, let me, I'll bring up the Safe Routes to Schools link that's on the thing here. So here's their website. So if you want to go ahead, Kelly.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I actually think this might be outdated. There was an email that went out actually, I think this morning. The call for projects is actually going to be occurring in the middle of March. So just a little under a month from now. And Active Transportation Headquarters, they are doing specific outreach to different jurisdictions. Right now, they're providing more information based on kind of for jurisdictions that haven't traditionally been involved in the Safe Routes to School grant program. So they're trying to be a little more equitable in who has access to these grant programs. And then once the call for projects goes out, then kind of they're done doing their outreach. So call for projects will be middle of March, and then they are going to have some informational webinars and some like training workshops on the applications that can be submitted. So you can get updates if you use that sign up for emails link right there. I just got the email this morning. Yeah, perfect. And I actually think it's on the agenda of today's meeting as well, right underneath
Yeah.
the link to this one. Yep.
So if you go to this link here, guys, it'll take you to this webpage and you can sign up that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is kind of a way for jurisdictions to get funding for projects that make routes to school safer for students. So yeah, I guess I'm the active transportation coordinator for the region. And so if anyone is working with their jurisdictions, you can feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about the grant application process and walk through things if needed. So yeah, I can answer any questions as well.
Does anyone have any questions about the Safe Routes to Schools?
Sorry, I just had one. On the website, it says the calls are ending July 20th, 2020, but that's not true. It's middle of March is when.
Oh, yes. So I think that was from last year. So the call for projects will be released on March 15th. And then the applications are due, there's kind of two different programs. One is due on May 30th, and then the other one is due on June 6th. And the same application, I think, can be used for both. So kind of right around the end of May, early June is when they would be due. And then, yeah, the call for projects opens in a little under a month in March.
May I ask, does this relate to that map, those maps that we looked at? I think it was last meeting, if not, I think it was last meeting that sort of showed where there were proposed improvements had been planned. I think that was a little bit out of date.
That's a good question. Are you referring to when Chuck presented about Battlegrounds active transportation plan? Or was it something
No,
else?
actually, I think this was, I don't recall if that was the same presentation. It was, we went over a number of different, and there may have been one for Battleground, but I think he had a pretty serious presentation that was just Battleground. And so maybe go ahead, please.
I think what you're talking about, Michael, is Clark County's prioritization project list that they have. And so the Safe Routes to Schools is specifically for, finding safe routes to schools. So jurisdictions would apply for a grant to say, finish a sidewalk connection that gets you to a school, or put in a crosswalk and everything that gets you to a school. So that list that Gary presented, some of those projects could be options to apply for a grant from Safe Routes to Schools, but they have to be, specific to make a route to school safer in that case. But that's why the county prioritizes projects, so they can say, oh, here's one that's, it's a route to a school, it's high on our list, we can apply for this grant. So that's why the county does that list.
Excellent, thank you. I really appreciate the clarification.
And just thinking about that other project, with this, can the suggested safe routes for school be in Vancouver? Or do they have to be outside of Vancouver and in the county? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it can be, any jurisdiction can apply for it, or for the grant funding under the same kind of explanation that was just provided, that it's for schools, basically.
And it's the jurisdictions that have to apply for the grants, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So if you know of one where you're like, hey, there's a, kids just running across the middle of the street here, you would want to reach out to whatever jurisdiction that's in, City of Vancouver, Battleground, Clark County, and say, hey, this is a great opportunity for a safe routes project because I watch 40, 50 kids run across this same spot every day. You know, so that's how you would go about that if you're a citizen that knows about a location. And if it's in Clark County, you can bring it to this meeting and we can tell Gary, and Gary can get it to the right person in the county. So. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. And I'll work with Gary to hopefully get an updated link out to everybody so we're not looking at old information.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, running through the list, I don't see anyone else from jurisdictions. If I'm missing you, please speak up. Excuse me, as I'm terrible with names. All right. So we'll move on to new business. The first is the new vice chair. So Judith Perez is our new vice chair. Congratulations and thank you. Let's see here. Very exciting to have someone helping me again since Anna left and have other input besides just my own to Gary, so that'll be good. All right. Overview of maps online. So this is an ArcGIS program. So if you were to click this link on the agenda, I'll leave those open. It'll take you to this page. And it'll essentially look like this when you start out. It'll show you kind of, zoom out. So it shows you all of Clark County and then down into Portland. And what this map is showing is bike routes and multi-use paths. So if you click over here, it takes you to the layer list. And you can turn on and off road labels. You can turn off, you know, the bike conditions. You can turn off the bike routes and bike lanes. You can turn off PBOTS information. And then we have a legend over here that kind of describes, you know, everything that's going on. And one thing that I think is really helpful about this map is if you look, the dark gray areas here in Clark County are all city jurisdictions. So Ridgefield, Vancouver, Camas, Washougal, Battleground, La Center, Yacolt. I think I got them all. There's a portion of Woodland up here, which doesn't show, but there's a little bit of the city of Woodland in this area. So those are all areas that are managed by those local jurisdictions. So Clark County, you know, essentially doesn't have any say in what gets built in this area. But as part of this committee, a lot of times these jurisdictions come to us for feedback on, you know, what they want to do, like the city of Battleground. We were helping answer some of that stuff last month. So they'll come to us to ask questions about some of their stuff, even though Clark County itself doesn't necessarily have any actual decision power on those items. And then if you click on this one, you can have all these different base maps. So the one I wanted to show you is this one. So you can kind of see how we've got this little tan area in here, comes out around Battleground. There's some around Ridgefield. So these areas are the urban growth boundaries. So that's where urban growth can happen in the county. And then outside of that, and kind of the grayer, light gray areas is what's considered rural. So that distinction applies a lot to road classifications and what's required on those roads. So we'll probably get into that a little more over the years as we look at projects, but essentially once you get out into this light gray area, you're not going to have bike lanes. It might be wide shoulders, but it's, you know, basically 2-lane roads. You get some areas like the highways where you'll have, you know, your highway road, but most of them are just going to be rural roads with not a lot of bike lane options. And then once you get in here, this is when the urban road classifications start to come in and you get bike lanes and those sorts of things. So any questions on that?
Well, one question, you said this was attached to the agenda, but I don't, did I get an agenda? Did we mail out the agenda? Because I just was checking as you began here and I didn't.
Let's see here.
I mean, and it's, believe me, I could easily have just overlooked it. And
I didn't receive an agenda emailed out, so I went to Clark County's website, and the agenda was on Clark County's website. It's not the easiest of pages to get to, though.
No, it is not.
Oh, actually, I found when I couldn't find the agenda, I did find the map. I just Googled Clark County bike routes, but I was just wondering if there's, there may be other worthwhile stuff in the agenda.
So it looks like Gary sent it on February 14th, but I don't know. I'll make sure that we have everyone on the list. It looks like a short list to me, so.
Thank you.
We'll make sure that he has an updated list that he's sending it out to. Because yeah, usually the list is longer than that one, so. With the changeover, he may have added some folks on there.
I actually had a question, and by the way, I really appreciate you going over this because it's extremely confusing to figure out like what belongs to who and who can have a say in what, and it still kind of is confusing. What I was thinking is ways when we start to talk about connecting the county through a bicycle route. That involves, all the different jurisdictions and people agreeing and having an understanding of everything being connected. So I guess where I'm going with this is what do we have control over? So say that we saw parts where it needed to be completed, would we, if we could work with that jurisdiction to try to influence that, or if it was outside that in the urban growth area, then we would have more say in it. Is that kind of why we're going over this, or in terms of what we should be focusing on?
Kind of a little bit of both of that, So Clark County has a say in everything that's not in this darker gray. So everything that's outside of these, these city boundaries, that's what Clark County has control over. As far as connections go between, where Clark County meets up with a city, we haven't really come up with a great solution on how to work those situations. Jan, who's normally on here, is involved at the city of Vancouver a lot. So she's a good avenue to get to the city. We don't have a lot of great connections at some of the other jurisdictions.
Well, that's where I probably come in. This is Linda with the Regional Transportation Council, because I participate in these meetings and we collectively have a monthly technical advisory committee, which involves all of the jurisdictions in Clark County. So if there's any issues that are brought up at this meeting, I can bring them to the table to let people know in the jurisdictions where there might be connectivity issues at the regional level.
Thank you, Linda. So yeah, if you have anything, bring it to the meeting and we can talk about it. But as far as what we as a committee and what Clark County can actually do anything directly about, it's outside of those city jurisdictions.
Yeah, Gary really clarified that for me, because I was like, oh, I have these two intersections that drive me insane. And so I did some Google Maps, used snipping tool to take some pictures like with and showing like where this sucks and how if we completed this, we could essentially connect like Camas, Clark County, and Battleground with one big route, dedicated bike lanes the whole way. And he's like, great idea, but that's in the city. And I was like, oh. So he passed it on to the city committee. But I was just thinking in terms of being able to connect everything, wouldn't that be under our purview as well? So I guess, yeah, I'm just trying to learn like what we actually have an influence on and what we don't, I guess.
Yeah, we definitely bring everything to the meeting, but we have the most influence on the things that are just outside of the cities.
Thank you.
All right. So after that, we have the work program, but we're going to save that for last. So we're going to jump down to the transportation system plan sounding board update. So I'll jump over to the February meeting here. Oh, that's not the right thing. That's not it either. There we are. So February's meeting last week was going over environmental stewardship, specifically related to transportation, so specifically related to roads, basically, and how the county is handling that. So the two questions we were asked: do our existing policies for transportation support environmental stewardship? And what can we do better to support our environment in relation to transportation projects? So one of the things that I mentioned, so if you look back at, I know not everybody's been on the committee for all these meetings since we started in the middle of last year. Oh, excuse me. But here's some of the things we've talked about. First we looked at vehicular transportation, then we looked at freight rail aviation, then pedestrian and bikes, transit and active transportation, neighborhood circulation, and regional circulation. So we've looked at all these greater topics, how can we improve pedestrian, bicycle circulation? How can we get rid of single occupancy vehicle trips? How can we get more people using transportation, public transportation, those sorts of things? So one comment essentially was that by doing all of these things, the county is attempting to help with the environmental stewardship. And then there wasn't a lot of other feedback to that point. Linda, do you want to add anything to that since you were in that meeting as well?
Yeah, it was a fairly brief meeting, really, and
yeah,
there wasn't a huge amount of feedback because I think environmental stewardship is something that's tough for citizen committees to know a lot about.
Right. One of the big things they talked about was stormwater management and making sure we're not sending polluted water to all of our rivers and streams.
And on the transportation side of things, I mean, with the state's increasing focus on vehicle miles traveled reduction and greenhouse gas emissions reductions, I mean, we're looking more and more at what transportation modes can be taken other than the automobile. So definitely pedestrian and cycling and rolling come into play more and more with trying to reduce our vehicle miles traveled.
Yeah. And one thing that he did point out is that a lot of the environmental is controlled by the state, with all of the Department of Ecology regulations, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regulations, those sorts of things. So a lot of it, the county doesn't have a lot of control over what they are and are not allowed to do. And so it's a little bit of a difficult one at a county level to kind of deal with, but a lot of it was just kind of coordination with development projects, those sorts of things that they could try to do. And then continuing to, like Linda said, try to find ways to reduce trips. So any other thoughts on that topic?
Yeah. For the second one, what can we do to better support our environment in relationship to transportation projects? I've heard this come up a few times at Vancouver City Council meetings, is having actually when they're making the projects have so cars and stuff have lots and lots and lots of filters. They're significantly cleaner burning than they were even 20 years ago, but the construction vehicles don't have like any filters. So when it comes time to replace construction big machines and stuff, finding ones that have filters.
Okay. That's a good comment.
I could not really hear the comment. It was very quiet. I think I made out something about how much cleaner cars are than they were 20 years ago. Aside from that, I couldn't hear anything.
Oh, yeah. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. So cars are they're still not clean, but they're significantly cleaner than they were 20 years ago because they have a lot more regulations and filters on them. But the construction vehicles that make all these new transportation projects, such as roads and bike lanes, have virtually no filters on them. So they are really, even though there aren't as many as them as cars, they're really, really bad when they do get used. So that could be a consideration, is when they become no longer usable, replacing them with machines that are cleaner burning or electric.
John, you have your hand raised.
Oh, yeah. I had, I guess, a comment on, I guess it's number 2. What can we do better? Support the environment in relationship to transportation. I did some reading about there's a development in the east part of the county called, it's from Pacific Lifestyles, and it's called Velvet Acres. And in short, basically it's kind of plopped in the middle of a agricultural area. And the only way to get there are some 2-lane roads with very, if any, shoulder. And I'm really not sure. I think it's pretty much car dependent. You know, it would probably be even a little tricky to walk. And so I guess my comment is that I don't know what the weight of developments are as far as being approved as to whether or not they would induce additional driving. But I would think that that would maybe should be a consideration. I know developers want to make money and we need homes. I know that, but where they go relative to access to the rest of the world, I think it probably needs to be looked at. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think in going, like what John says is great. And I think overall, and this was also in the Jamboard too about actions, is to kind of fight for our say, that we have to have a say and an input, and that they have to provide in any new development or any road project, they have to consider active transportation and options that support the environment rather than just cars. Because all this is great, like we could put support towards anything, but having it actually matter or make a difference or have influence on that development, like John mentioned, like kind of not necessarily forcing them, but highly encouraging places to start supporting that rather than just thinking about cars and like, oh yeah, we'll consider it. No, they have to include this as part of their development plans.
Lisa, you have your hand raised. You're muted.
There we go. This an idea that's already been being done a little bit, the expanding, having teaching how to bike in public schools. They already have a gym class and they're already wanting to teach children how to be more active. So increasing funding for teaching biking at public school levels.
All right. So one of the things, just, you know, I work in development as a land use planner, so I have some idea on some of the stuff that John was talking about. And a lot of it comes down to existing county code, but the other thing that we have to look at from the development side, and that the county can't necessarily require some things because there's a nexus where the improvement that is being put in has to be relatively reasonable in size to the development that is occurring. And so there's a couple of federal cases on it that have kind of still left a little bit of gray area on what is actually proportional to a development, but that's definitely something that the county could, you know, start to wade into a little bit as to what's proportional to a development, and you know, what are they even allowed to require, what can they require, those sorts of things. So I'll take those comments back to our next meeting in March. All right.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention one more thing, because I think John really brought up something great, and it makes me think of Washington State University. Stay close, go far. We have this big university way out there that a lot of healthy young people could be essentially riding their bikes to, or partway utilizing public transit, and that would be a great place to start in terms of trying to connect and realizing, oh, we're putting something out here. How are we going to allow people to get there without having to need a single-use vehicle? And that's a great example to kind of show like that's obviously needed. Let's require that of them before it opens.
All right, thank you. John, did you have another?
Yeah, just one quick comment on my statement, and that is that like I'm new to Vancouver or even to the state of Washington, And we did look at those homes in that development because they were already built. The article that I read an article about it back in 2016, and there was already some concern about some of the highway projects or roadway projects for traffic control. And but when I saw how to get there and how to get out of there, I told my wife, I said, you know, I don't think this is going to work. And so we ended up in Orchards. And that was one of the thoughts that came to my mind, was that the fact that how am I going to get in and out of here, you know, and feel comfortable about it? And how are you going to encourage new riders when the situation is a little challenging? So anyway, just a little added comment there. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, so the next task on our list is the 2022 work program. So if there's any jurisdictional staff still on, this part is going to get a little not too informational, a little more about, you know, kind of what we as a committee want to do. So when I was talking to Gary earlier in the month, we figured we'd kind of give you guys the option to drop off now if you wanted to, while we go over our work program. And I mean, you're more than welcome to hang around and listen to us decide what we're going to work on, but it's not necessary for you guys to hang out for the rest of the meeting if you don't want to. So completely up to you. All right. So I think, Yasmina, do you want to run the Jamboard?
Sure.
Let me.
We're going through this meeting so fast.
I don't mess around, man.
I see that. 30 minutes, and I think we could be out of here by 7 p.m. So as I'm going to share my screen, actually, Michael, if you can stop sharing. And for those of you who utilize Jamboard, I would like your honest feedback. You know, first thoughts. Was it easy? Was it difficult? You can shout it out as I'm sharing my screen.
Oh, that was me who was messing around with other people's stuff. I tried to change it back to how it was. I didn't know how to work it really well, so that was me. Sorry.
You are totally fine. Let's see.
I feel the same. I did some weird OCD thing where I organized all the squares on the back thing. I was like, why did I do that? That's none of my business, but it was just automatic. I was like, so I didn't move them back. So that was me that did that.
Okay, you're totally fine. And so the idea behind this was, so I had done this in a previous coalition meeting, and we had folks, actually I'd done this several times, but it was in person. Sorry, not in person. It actually in the meeting in breakout rooms, and so I can give examples. And so as I was giving directions, I thought, gosh, how difficult can this be to provide, you know, directions? And as I went in this afternoon and saw that things have got moved around, so I'm glad that Michael has given us a chance to do this virtually and do this together. So for those of you who have not done Jamboard, what I'm going to do is just give you just a quick tutorial, and then
let me just say, I tried to do this.
Oh,
I
yes.
couldn't make sense of it, and I responded back to you an email, and you and Gary said, no, that wasn't intended for me to do. Was that incorrect?
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now because. So I got confused between the two Michaels. So now the cat is out of the bag, and that was just such a confusing email, right, Michael? Yes. And I thought, gosh, I never even consulted with Michael, the chair, about this. I just kind of went and took this a different route, right? So I CC'd Michael Newton, and Michael Newton was like, what is going on? So it was just so confusing. And I texted Gary, I was like, I'm just going to dig a hole in my backyard, because it was like, oh. So for clarification, Michael, that was supposed to go for the chair. And then the chair, you know, Michael, it seems like you're pretty chill about it because you didn't say anything. So what Gary and I did was we basically looked at the bike and the master plan, the bike and ped master plan, which is like a couple hundred pages, like, right? It's super, super lengthy. There are action items, not strategies, that this master plan is like back in 2010. So not really everything applies to this day and age. And so what we decided to do is to kind of go through each category that we have. And there's 4 different categories. And I came up with this idea because I usually have a hard time providing input at meetings. A lot of the things either just go over my head. I don't understand what's happening. It's in engineering planner talk, you know, jargony. And so I'm not that I have like an attention deficit disorder, but I really can't focus. I really can't. And so I like the idea of a Jamboard, and what we wanted you to do is to provide input. And so I'm going to share my screen again, and I'll go over each page. And then before I let you go and do it on your own, if you have any questions, just let me know. But so that's the clarification, Michael. So you'll have a lot of time to provide your input, and everyone else too. So it's okay if you did not provide input. This is kind of why we're here.
Great, thank you. Sorry about the confusion with the names.
I know.
Question.
And
Go ahead, Judith.
No,
and
quick question.
Michael,
So if we provided input already, is that input still on the Jamboard, or is it just, do we have to start all over again?
so good question. So some folks got confused as they just shared and they moved things around. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Judith, and I'll tell you probably why you're going to have to redo this.
Okay.
Okay, so can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so right here on the left-hand side is a toolbar. You're only going to use the sticky note. And so how this function works is you click on it and a sticky note opens up and you type in. So I'm going to be like, yay. And as you save it, you click anywhere else on the Jamboard and it goes away. Then there's 3 little dots. Let me click on it, 3 little dots. You can edit it or you can delete it. And as you edit it, you can also choose different colors. You can make some changes, put your name on it, and then you're going to save it. And once again, and you can also move this around. So that's kind of how you use the Jamboard. You don't have to use any of these other tools, so just the sticky note.
And you want us to be anonymous on it?
I think it says anonymous because you probably don't have a Gmail. I'm not sure because it pops up. So this says anonymous. Oh, I guess pumpkin.
Yeah, it just generates a weird animal. Because when I first went on it, it said anonymous beaver. And I was like, why? And then I logged in again and it was like anonymous chinchilla.
Oh, yeah, I did not assign any names to you all. So at the top here, there's different pages, as you can see. So these are all the different pages. And again, you don't have to add to these. I think some folks were adding different pages. But we'll go back to, let's see, so the first page. So there are 4 pages. So there's the master plan goal 1, and this is aligned with the bike and pedestrian master plan. So it's developing a bicycle and pedestrian network. And I'll go through all these and then come back and we'll review the action items. So master plan goal 2 was the education, encouragement, and safety program. The third one was active transportation planning and bicycle and pedestrian supportive land uses. And the fourth one was funding. And so when Gary and I were discussing, there were just some roadblocks as far as funding. We're not a nonprofit. How does funding work? And so we replaced it with the Bike and Ped Advisory Committee webpage because it needs to be updated. And so this is where folks were providing their input. So on each page, we have 3 of the strategies that are in bright green. And these have been pulled directly from, again, the Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. So Judith, to answer your question, these, when I came in this afternoon, these were changed. So for example, this action one here was added. And so if you had answered, to this action, we didn't put that there. So this was just someone who added an action that they wanted to maybe discuss or one of some of their suggestions. And so later on this afternoon, I just put in to not move the green boxes. These are the ones that have already been selected. So what you were tasked to do, since we are a small committee, we obviously can't do everything in the master plan, but we wanted you to prioritize the strategies. I keep calling them strategies. I know it says action. So I want you to review each of the actions, and then you're going to take a sticky note and you're going to write 1 being your first choice. You can color code it however you like. Let's say I'm going to save this and I want this to be my number 1. And I think this is where we should put all of our efforts in. And then maybe you look over here, maybe this is going to be 2 and this is going to be 3. And the idea is that then Gary and I will then take this and synthesize all of this and basically prioritize them based on, you know, the most votes. I'm going to go ahead and delete this.
And we could pick any color, you said? Because I was like, I don't want to, I just was clear. I was like, there's no more colors. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. So what I might do, because this is now confusing, I feel like this is not well represented. I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete all of these. And while I'm deleting them, you can take your time and reading each of the action items. If you have any questions, you can also place them under here. I didn't want to remove these. These are folks. So these I had found over here and I moved them back here because I thought maybe folks had some questions that wanted to share it if you were really passionate about, you know, one of these actions that you thought was not represented. So I left these here on the sidelines. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. But otherwise, these will be the ones that we will be selecting.
But Jasmina, the idea is that we will work on it as a group today.
Yeah, the idea, and if that's okay, I mean, I would prefer if we stayed online. So what's going to happen is I'm going to basically clear this out, just kind of go through and delete it. And then I'll give you a link and you would have access to it. And so when folks are in the Jamboard at the same time, I think there's like about 10 of us here. It can get a little bit too crazy, a lot of things moving around. What I sometimes like to do, if I find too many people moving things around, I will go to the next page or maybe even a page over here where I see less confusion. Again, I get easily distracted. And so that way, if anyone has any questions, I can answer that for you. Because I can't, if folks start deleting things and moving things around, then these are not really representative of folks' final decisions.
But when each of us makes an input, we don't move the stuff that's already there. We put new input in, right? That's why there's multiple different. Is that not right?
Yeah, so let's do this one. So I'm going to go ahead and delete just the master plan for this goal 1 for the first page. And as I'm just deleting these, you can review the strategies and then I'll send you a link and we'll just work on this first page together. Would that be helpful? Before I let you all go off and do it on your own?
And could you not, you're not going to delete the last page suggestions one, right?
No, yeah, okay. That one, correct. Okay. It shouldn't take me too long.
This is actually a pretty cool program now that we're all up to date on it, for everybody to be able to access something and add ideas. And
it's a great way to get everyone's input. A lot of committee meetings that I'm part of, folks don't want to chat, you know, usually they're in large groups. And so if you think of this, what I was trying to replicate is a big white sticky, you know, on a wall, and then you would take sticky notes and put it under. Okay, so I'm going to leave these here just in case folks want to revisit that. So I'm going to copy this link, and I did change the permission, so all of you should be able to have access to edit. Okay, so the link is in the chat box. If you click on the link, it should automatically open up to the Jamboard and you will have access. And soon you will see other folks, I guess, animals.
So my question, when I start making changes, or if I start making input, that will be identified with me, right? So I won't be overwriting anybody else. It'll just be
correct.
Good.
Yeah. So again, Michael Newton, on the left-hand side, grab a sticky note and then just identify as 1, 2, 3, and then you just basically place it under each strategy.
Yeah, because when you use the analogy of the sticky board or the sticky notes on boards, whenever I've done that, each person got their own color sticky notes, and that way it helped with confusion. This is validating my URL, and it's taking a long time. And I'm going to start again. I'll click this again.
Okay.
So one thing I'm noticing is they're all popping up in the same location. So if you hit one and it pops up and you like put in a 2 and you got a 1 over it, just give it a second so someone can move their number over yours. That's over yours, if that makes sense.
And I'll quickly delete on the other pages. That way folks, so don't go to the next page just yet, because I'm still deleting. And then when I give you the go ahead, then folks can go to other pages.
These animals are crazy. Like, I'm an anonymous axolotl. I've never even heard of that animal. That's pretty cool.
Is it possible that this does not work with a Chromebook?
It should be, because it is Google.
Yeah, I clicked the link at first and I had that looking for URL, and then I closed that and I'm clicking it again, and it's just like it's as though there were no link.
I had to copy it and then put it into my browser separate, so I could do it either. Maybe that'll work for you. I just did copy link and then.
I will give that a try.
Okay, so looks like folks are getting the hang of things. So
I
for
hope
those
you come to every meeting.
Sorry?
That worked. That worked.
Okay. Okay, so for page 2 on education, encouragement, and safety, you're good to go to start again numbering your actions based on your preference. And also on the goal number 3, you're good to go there as well.
And I'm an anonymous iguana.
I just want to know what an aurochs is. Aurochs?
So these are just for practice now, right? We're or are these going to count?
This is the real deal.
Oh crap. Okay.
Sometimes they play music in the background and they think it's helpful, but I find it so distracting.
You said we'll answer questions at the end, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are folks about done?
I'm about done with page goal number 2.
And one thing to note as you're going through, you know, we don't have some of these goals from the master plan on there, like Yasmina said, you know, pulling funding off because we're not really able to do much about funding. There's a couple others, for example, goal 3, traffic management, demand management. There's not a lot we as a committee can do about that, so that's why we're not looking too much into those. Or some of them kind of fall underneath some of the possible tasks we can do under some of the other goals. So that's why we've kind of gone this route over the last couple of years as far as the goals that we've used.
I do have a possible idea for increased funding. It obviously wouldn't do everything, but have you considered working with the Washington Trail Association for the dedicated bike paths and trails that were on the plan? But I know like they're really eager to do work with the county again.
Okay. I don't think we've worked with them since I've been here. We've done a lot of work with the, why am I blanking? They're downtown. Bicycle.
Yeah, by Clark County.
Thank you. I could not remember. We've done a lot of work with them in the last probably 6 years, I think. Well, the 4 years prior to the last 2 years, really. So they would get funding and then we could help with some of their projects, either through help from the county or just through, you know, this committee. So we could definitely look into something like that with the Washington Trail Association as well.
Yeah, that one power line trail and then the rail trail, like they wouldn't be able to do everything. Like I don't think they pour concrete or anything, but they could do a lot of the prep work. I'd join in, I'd help.
Yasmina, I may be the only one that spoke up that said I was not done, so I am done now. I don't know if anybody else is, but I don't want to hold things up waiting for me.
Okay. So going to master plan goal 1 and just looking at under the questions, we don't have any questions, but like I mentioned, I put those actions that have been listed. Does anyone want to just, I don't want to delete them, but does anyone want to share?
Can you make them
input or
read them?
Say that again?
Could you make them a little bigger, please?
Oh, yes.
I'll just let you control it so that way there's only one person doing it.
So let's see, action 1.31, develop bicycle parking standards and minimum quantities of short-term and long-term bicycle parking tied to land uses. And then also there was action 1.13, integrate bicycle and pedestrian facilities into new construction and reconstruction, including overlays of roadway projects where bikeways have been designated using optimal design and practices.
So those were some that, because when we voted before, we weren't supposed to vote on those.
No.
They were added. Oh, okay. I was like, that last one, I really liked that one. I was like, that was a good one. But it's very similar to action 1.2.5, action 1.1.3. They're very similar. Basically, like, let's finish these bike lanes and make sure that we have a say in them getting done. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I think that's, and 1.1.3, a lot of it is kind of already happening under current code. Is it perfect? Definitely not. But, you know, any development that gets put in, they have to put sidewalks in along their frontage. Depending on the roadway classification adjacent to their development, they'll have to put bike lanes in along the roadway if it's the right roadway classification. So a lot of that particular item is already happening. And part of the transportation system plan is to try to help improve some of that too, that the county's working on as well. And like you said, a lot of it does kind of fall under 1.2.5.
So is it safe to, I can delete this? I don't want to have any confusions of it listed under questions or an added strategy.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so it's, again, same thing with this one, developing bicycle and parking standards.
Personally, I like this one, but currently Clark County Code does not have any standard requirements for volume as far as, you know, bicycle parking is required. And I don't, off the top of my head, it's been a while since I've done a site plan, but I can't think of any actual requirement they have to put it in anyway. It might be a suggestion at the current time. I don't know how to say this nicely, but I don't know at the immediate moment in the next year there's much we could do about it.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like, if you guys have any opinions on it, please. I'm trying to be realistic with everybody on what we can accomplish in the next year. That's kind of what these work programs are, is, you know, what can we accomplish in the next year? And just knowing how the county is right now, I don't know that that's something we could even consider accomplishing just for staffing levels alone at Clark County.
I agree with what you're saying. I think that obviously that's important, but not as important as the other things we're trying to do.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. So kind of the same thing here. We've got 4 of these. Again, folks were selecting from the bike and master plan. So
everyone should move the page over just in case you haven't moved over.
Oh, sorry. Am I not still sharing my screen?
You are, but if you're following it on your own screen also, like I'm doing, I just confused myself, so.
Gotcha. Yes, we're on education, encouragement, and safety program. So kind of the same idea. If folks, I don't want to delete your ideas, and then Michael, feel free. You know this work plan better than I do.
Do you want to blow up 4.4.1 a little bit, please?
Yeah, and I can read this. So develop and implement a bikeway and walkway maintenance program, including sweeping, pothole repair, and hazard removal along bicycle routes and sidewalks as funding and priorities allow.
I think that falls under the, you know, probably not something that we can accomplish this year. I'm not sure what anyone else's opinions are on that one.
I asked the question on regard because that was one of the ones when I went to vote, it was one of our actions. So my comment was, couldn't we enforce basic road maintenance in current use to do this rather than create a separate program with assumingly separate funding? Just another reason I wanted to ask that is, I think that should be included. I think basic road maintenance doesn't mean road maintenance to make things safe for a car. I think road maintenance makes it safe for everyone using that road. I think that goes as a part of street equity. So the idea of creating a separate funding or separate need for just bikes and walking kind of creates the idea that, you know, those things shouldn't be covered by basic road maintenance, which they absolutely should. So that was the only point I was making with asking that question about it.
I gotcha. And one thing we can do on that one, in the agenda, there's a link to the PowerPoint for the transportation system plan. On the last slide, which is Gary's favorite slide, is the one that has the link to Clark County's maintenance request link. So you can go to that link, and then anywhere that there's a sidewalk repair or a pothole or striping or any improvement that needs to be fixed on Clark County's roadways, you can put that in there. I think you shared it last month as well. You can go there and, you know, this area needs to be clean, this area needs to be striped. And it actually gets to someone. I've gotten a response before when I've used it. They haven't actually fixed what I've asked them to yet. They said it's on their plan, so.
Is that a roadkill report too, or?
I would imagine you could send that there, but I don't know.
I was just curious.
He has different labels that you can complain about different stuff. I mean, it could be road maintenance, it could be traffic, it could be, I mean, there's an array of choices that you have on that website. And it goes straight to a staff person, whoever's in charge of that program. And then ideally, the program is set up so they get back to you and they say, hey, we're going to look into this, or we don't have the funding to do it. So somebody should be calling or emailing you if you file some type of a complaint.
So we've got action. Oh, John, you've got your hand up.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say that I saw that the question was posted. I had put that down as one of my objectives or activities or whatever, actions. And I agree with you. I mean, I don't think we really need to start another program, but I think I've had problems with debris that was in an area for quite a while, and there was some jurisdictional battles because it was on Ward Road, which part of it is 500, which is state versus county. But I think I agree that maintenance should be maintenance, and it should be maintenance for all the commuters. And so I agree with you on that. Thank you.
It's like you had your hand up, Michael Newton.
Yes, I just want to, I guess, double or you know, the second the point that a bikeway, a bike lane or a bike trail that is not maintained essentially ceases to exist, and serious cyclists will just go back out onto the road. So it really shouldn't be a separate line item. It's just, if you're going to have a bike lane, you have to maintain it.
And one thing that I just thought of on that one too is that if it is a multi-use path on Clark County Parks property, that is a Clark County Parks maintenance and not Clark County Public Works maintenance, I believe. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are on a park property or a trail that's not, you know, on a roadway, basically, it is likely going to be maintained by Clark County Parks over Clark County Public Works.
It just has to be maintained by somebody.
Right, but it's just funding source and different rules sometimes, but yeah.
So in the chair or vice chair, do you have any advice on adding this one or recommendations?
I think it sounds like we're good with taking it off.
Oops, not edit. So the other one is, I'm going to delete this as I'm deleting it. I'll read it. Action 4.4.2, install continuous counting devices to track ridership goals.
And we have some of those in already. I'll have Gary bring it up next month because he knows where more of them are than I do. I forget, but there's one on the I-5 bridge, both directions.
There's one on 205.
Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you guys tell me where they are, I'll ride over them every day. Maybe we should have like a little map just to get the awareness out.
Yeah, I'll have to bring.
Yeah, that is something that I was going to say with the Watch that was talking about the Safe Routes to School and the Pedestrian Bicycle Program grants. I mean, if the county decides to submit an application, they can attach some of those bike and ped counters as part of the application. So that's something that it doesn't cost an awful lot of money and it's easy to add. If you're working with any local agencies in any of these grants, definitely suggest to add those throughout the state, or at least through Clark County, because there's only, that I'm aware of, there's only 4 of them. Park Services controls ones, and I tried to get that data before, and I was not able to get it from them because it was before the onset of COVID. They were too busy.
I'll have Gary, since we haven't looked at it in a while, we've got new members, I'll have Gary put the counter stuff on the next agenda so that we can just at least look at it so everyone can see what we've got existing.
I delete that, but I definitely took notes. And just to let you all know, even though I'm deleting it, I'm still keeping those notes and your ideas. Last one on this one is encourage jurisdictions to provide incentives to businesses and residents completing new and redevelopment of properties that include bicycle and pedestrian friendly facilities and designs.
So I know City of Vancouver already does some of this, so it's good to see in the city. Politically in the county, I think it would be difficult currently. It's definitely, you know, it's better to encourage it than nothing at all. But just knowing the current politics of Clark County and where they fall on things, you know, it's a change that would be difficult to make this year. It's a good change and it's one that we need, but I don't think that it's one that we can accomplish.
Agreed. I think overall, with regards to that, we maybe want to change the messaging too, of we have a right to bicycle. It's your personal right. You have a right to walk down the street. I mean, there's ways that we could change that messaging to appeal to what I see maybe the political beliefs are. But yeah, I agree that that's probably something that we can't accomplish in a year.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this one.
And one thing to note too, you know, just because we don't have something on our annual work program, it's not something that we can't strive for when we see opportunities for it. So, you know, just keep that in mind. If you see an opportunity for something that you think the committee could help with, you know, go ahead and bring it up. There's no reason we can't try something just because it's not on our work program for this year. You know, we're just kind of trying to pick some things that we think we can accomplish in a year on this work program. It's not the end all be all of what we're going to do.
So our third one here is, we've got, let's see. Action 6 point, questions up here. 6.1.4, change Title 40 and or road standards to limit the construction of new cul-de-sac and connect existing cul-de-sacs with bicycle and or pedestrian access ways.
So I can speak to that one a little. They have just added, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, the code was updated to require pedestrian connections from cul-de-sacs to certain roadways where certain distance requirements were or were not met. I don't know the exact language off the top of my head. So they've done that one, kind of. It's not perfect. And then the county has circulation requirements that they're enforcing a lot more stringently in recent years for future, for new developments going in, that are starting to limit the number of cul-de-sacs that developers are able to put in, when there's potential to circulate to a neighboring property in the future as development continues. There are some cases though where there's still, a valuable tool when there's critical areas, those sorts of things that need to be protected. But a lot of that one is currently happening in development review with the county.
So we're deleting this one?
I think so, yeah. Unless anyone has any other immediate comments.
And I think these responses, again, I captured your thoughts here, but these comments were in response to that strategy. And then action 6.1, include low-speed roadway designs as bicycle and pedestrian projects.
So I think that's one that, this is a good example of one where, maybe it's not a work program item for us, but when Battleground came and talked to us last month, we had the opportunity to provide that feedback for them to, look at that roadway option where it would be a reduced speed roadway, 1 block south of Main or whatever it was, to provide a bikeway versus, just a car focused way. So I think this is one of those where it's an opportunity if it comes up, we can pounce on it, but I don't know that it's something that would be easy to focus on an accomplishment for a year kind of thing.
I mean, does this fall under same kind of idea of 6.1.1 to ensure consistent review of road projects? Is that kind of what you're explaining?
That's where we get the most opportunity to do these sorts of comments, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to, seems like it's kind of the same thing, it's just written differently, and this is more, the 6.1.2 is written more specifically. I was just trying to see if you wanted to capture, like you said, if you've done this a few times, it's kind of nice to capture the work as far as your metrics. But
I think that
leave it under question for now. And I know Gary likes 6.1.1.
Okay.
That's
one that's been on ever since I've been on the committee.
One that is important because has a lot of the different new projects, come to the county. We want to make sure that we provide our 2 cents worth regarding incorporating bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Otherwise, we just miss that opportunity. So I think 6.1.1 is very important to our work.
I agree. I think that's the most important one because that's where our power as this committee lies and our ability to actually make real changes. If we just go, oh, that sucked that happened, too bad we didn't get a say in it. Right. So that's probably the most important one.
Okay. I was just saying, including some of the language, keeping 6.1.1 and just saying and bicycle and pedestrian projects.
My take is that, as you look at a development coming through and you look at different options or the proposals that the staff is asking us to react to, we're going to be looking, as the experts, we're going to be looking at different choices, including low-speed roadways. So I think that is included. But otherwise, we have to include buffer bike lanes. We'll have to make sure that every single type of bicycle or pedestrian facility, we have a list of them. So I think that we need to make sure that we include them all.
Gotcha. So this is like the umbrella. This just sits under that. That's
the way I see it, but maybe somebody else sees it differently.
John, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just basically, I was just going to say that I think it's important that we make sure we're invited to the table early so that we have a chance to, put in our suggestions or ideas, whatever. So we're not coming in and somebody say, oh, well, it's too late. We've already been decided or whatever, So I'm assuming that's pretty much the way this works. But I'm just throwing that out just to make sure that we cover it that way.
Yeah, I think right now, currently, we review 30 and 60% plans from Clark County. And then, we do the best that we can to get our foot in the door on the other jurisdictions' plans as well when we have the opportunity. I know Gary does a lot of coordination for those. We've talked about reviewing 90% plans in Clark County. We'll have to ask Gary that question again next month because I don't remember where that ended up. But that's where we're currently at, is 30 and 60%.
I would say too, I guess, John, to address that concern is when we're typing this, it's helpful to have the strategies listed, but then maybe under those strategies is that we ensure that we provide, notification to the committee members prior to, to review the documentation. I think when we talk about an equity lens, that's just exactly that for folks who might have a hearing problem or can't really review those things on screen. I know when I'm reviewing something, I don't have enough time to digest it. And so a lot of times I'm not able to provide my input on plans or some suggestions. So maybe we can just be explicit when we write that in our work plan. And then this was pretty self-explanatory. I won't read through all the feedback. I think folks can probably read that on their own, and I'll share this with vice chair and chair. So I think for our next steps, definitely be including the chair and vice chair in my email. And then I would suggest just to revisit this together, and I can help. I'm here just to provide. The biggest thing is that equity lens piece, is making sure people have the input and, we write things that we can actually understand, because a lot of times I'm not an engineer, I'm not a planner, it goes over my head. And I know a lot of folks probably are in the same boat as I am, but the next plan would basically synthesize all of this and then write the work plan. I think there were some benchmarks listed in the prior work program. So that can probably be done offline between vice chair and chair, and then maybe share at the next meeting for folks to provide that input as well.
Yeah, that works for me. Sarah, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a small comment on some of the strategies. I've noticed a lot of them are about gathering data about interest or measurability, like trying to find ways to find out if people are walking or all of this. And I think the survey does that. I think that the survey that's already been created really does that to show interest. I think we kind of want to step away from just gathering data to see, oh, do people want to walk? Do people want to ride their bikes? They do. And a lot of bicycle infrastructure is, if you build it, they will come. I mean, that's the basis of everything. And so if we're just determining our actions based on data that may not, am I making any sense here? Sorry, it's just, if we're always trying to gather the data when we already know, yes, they want to, we have to put it there, and then you'll see that they use it. Sorry, that's just what I've noticed about like bicycle and walking infrastructure, is that they go by that whole philosophy, if you build it, they will come. It's hard to measure people's interest in doing something when they feel unsafe to be doing it. And so I think that the survey that we already have out really took care of that, to show a level of interest and ask those things. And maybe we don't really want to prioritize gathering more data to see interest when we already know it's there, and we already know that it'll increase if the infrastructure is there. Sorry, I probably didn't say that right, but.
I agree.
Thank you.
There's already not enough money to build the infrastructure, so, why use it on something else?
Yeah, gathering data that we already have. That's why the survey, it's a great survey, because it says, it doesn't say, are you interested? It says, what prevents you from doing this thing? And I think that's where the focus really needs to be. We don't need to ask more people if they want to walk or ride. I guess I'm assuming they do, and that they don't because the infrastructure is not created that way for them.
Michael, how many actions usually we picked in a year?
So we usually have about four main ones, kind of like what Yasmina has up here. And then we'll, under each main one, we'll kind of have, those 2 or 3, how can we accomplish this main goal sort of thing.
And then I think you also, in the last one, you also had folks who decided to join a work group. And so I think, again, at the next meeting, what I've done before in my past committees is really define what it is. So for example, just looking at this one, so I'm on page 1, Master Goal 1, developing a bicycle and pedestrian. Just looking at the numbers, looks like this, action 1.25, complete the recommended bikeway and pedestrian networks. And then thinking about who wants to be on this work plan, what does that look like? But there's also things like the education, encouragement, and safety program that might appeal to some folks. So I'm looking at, for example, continue existing and pursue new adult youth and bicycle pedestrian education, but also collaborate with the schools. This seems to be, there's kind of a tie, but that's something that folks can be on board if you have maybe a connection with the schools at the next meeting. Maybe that be an opportunity for you to want to volunteer for this work group. So that's kind of how it was done in the past, right, Judith? Is folks volunteer to be on some type of committee?
That was what we attempted to do, yeah. The last 2 years have been rough.
Yeah. Did you have a question, Sarah?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, with those work groups and everything, I was thinking this when we did the meeting last time with Battleground. I felt kind of guilty. I was like, man, I never really ride in Battleground. Like, I thought, what if I went out there and rode around and then emailed that guy and was like, hey, this sucks, this is good, this is what I think. Maybe we could start to do that more, like what you were saying with the work group to talk about education thing. Maybe we could have, I don't know, like a group ride or something to where we actually go to that place and look at it and ride through it. I guess that's what I was thinking, but I don't know. Is that something we've done in the past, or?
Not specifically, but it doesn't mean that it's not something we can't do. It's definitely an option.
Or if I did go out to Battleground and do that, like, would that guy think it was weird, or would he welcome it? Like, is that something maybe?
I think it's just going to depend situation by situation.
I gotta get my GoPro
is there a
working.
safe way? Is there a safe way to get to Battleground? When I think of getting to Battleground, I just get on the 503 or whatever that is, and you can do it, but that's
ride
not
the sidewalk all the way.
Well, there's a bike lane there, but you also have a lot of heavy industry trucking just blazing by at 65 plus. Anyway, it's doable. It's not a real friendly path.
I would take Andreessen to 88th, and then I would take 88th all the way down to like 159th, where I used to turn left to go to Wazoo, Vancouver. I think I'd go right and try to get to Battleground somehow, but that's without using Google Maps. I don't know.
Does anyone have any more questions before I exit? I was going to turn it back over to Michael, kind of shared kind of next steps. But does anyone have any questions as far as the Jamboard or next steps?
Just want to say thanks for taking the time for some of us slower people so we could come up to speed.
Oh, it's okay. I'm not really good with technology either. I was in a meeting this morning with City of Vancouver using Miro. It just was way too busy for me. So, okay, I'll stop sharing, and then Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So we'll kind of, Yasmina and Gary will work on compiling that information, and then we'll come back to it next month and kind of finalize everything with Gary here. So thanks everybody for your feedback on that one. Let me share the agenda real quick. Come on, there we go. All right, so that was the last item on the agenda for the week, or for the month. So before we get going, does anybody else have anything else they wanted to talk about with the committee?
I would share something. It might be, well, maybe if this is a little bit tangential. So if anybody has something that's directly to our main topic, I can wait.
I think you're good.
Okay. I've been the last week or so working with, you remember last summer when those people were chased in Kabul, were chasing down the aircraft to try to get on board to escape Afghanistan? Well, there are a whole, well, I don't know the number. There are a number of those people who are now in Vancouver, and they're settling in. I've been working with them for about a week now, and one of the things that they need is they need bicycles. And Bike Clark County has been helping in terms of they have bikes that you can put that can put together, but. So, the cycling, and they're going to be doing a lot of cycling, a lot of walking. There's not a lot of English language skills among these people. So they will be pedestrians and they will be cyclists, but there are also people that need hand holding. And if there's anybody on the committee that has some free time that is interested in helping Afghan refugees become Afghan Americans, if you contact me, I can get you in touch with the people that are running this program. And believe me, you will have some incredibly grateful people as friends. And I'll let that go at that because it is tangential to our main topic. But if there's any interest.
Thank you, Michael. I'm meeting with an Afghan family next week. I was going to say something, lost my train of thought. Next week here in Ridgefield, but I also on my not work stuff, I volunteer work stuff. So as a Muslim, I work with Muslims United, and most of the Afghan refugees are Muslims. So we also have our hiking project, and I'm trying to connect more Afghan refugees to our Muslim hiking group. So I'll definitely chat with you online and see how we can get that connection going. Excellent.
Yeah, these guys. I mean, I met with one guy Saturday. When I told him I was meeting with him today, next thing you know, there are 5 people in his hotel room, and it was, they're number one, they're excellent people, but number 2, they're also they will take any human contact and any help they can. That's anyway. Enough on this topic. I just wanted to share it in case there was any interest.
And so if you ever want to contact anybody else in the committee, the emails Gary sends out have everybody's email addresses on them. And so you can get their email address that way if you're looking for it. Or if you just want to email the whole group, you can do that too. And then the person you were trying to get to, if you weren't sure whose email it was, they can pull out everybody else from the email and start talking to you that way. So, and then kind of related to that, so Bike Clark County takes bike donations of used bikes. Pretty much no matter the condition, they'll take it, and they'll either salvage what parts they can and recycle the rest, and then they'll clean them up and donate those, or sell them at a real cheap rate so that they can keep themselves operational, and get people that need bikes. So if you're ever looking for somewhere to get rid of an old bike, take it to Bike Clark County downtown, and they'll put it to good use. All right. So with that, thank you everybody for your time. We'll jump back on the work program next month. And if you do have any topics that you want to talk about in the meeting, go ahead and shoot Gary an email and we can get it on the agenda too to make sure that we talk about it. So have a good month. If we need anything during the month, we'll reach out to you guys through email. So thank you very much, and I will see you at the end of next month.